I'm making roasted autumn vegetables today, and I think you're going to be delighted with them, particularly if you have kids that you've had a little bit of trouble getting to eat some of these kinds of things. I'm going to be using sweet potatoes, beets, and butternut squash. Now these are all things that we often associate with sweetness because we add a lot of sweetness to them, but today we're going to let them develop their own sweetness by roasting. Now what I'm going to start with is about 2 cups of sweet potatoes. Now notice that I've tried to cut them all in cubes, and potatoes generally don't come in cubes, so you have to actually make those cuts yourself. And what you're going to do with those little skinny parts that you cut off is you're going to save them for a soup. So we've got them into cubes. I also have about a cup and a half of beets that I've tried to cut about the same size, and a cup and a half of butternut squash that I've done the same thing to. Now the goal for cutting them all in the same size is not because, hey, that looks cool and it took forever. The goal to do this is that you want them all to roast at the same time so that they're all done at the same time, so that you don't have little pieces that are burnt and give that bitterness that kids don't like and that many adults don't like that much either. Now I'm going to switch on gloves at this point because I'm going to be using my hands, and I did in fact use the gloves when I was preparing the beets as well. Remember that when you're preparing these vegetables, even though you're going to be taking the peels off, you want to wash them well, scrub them in fact, and then go ahead and do the cuts that you need to make, and then rinse them again after you've got the peel off, and then go ahead and do the dice. So I've got my vegetables here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drizzle about a tablespoon of vegetable oil. Now I'm using an olive oil. You could use canola oil, kind of depends on how strong you want that flavor to be. I'd steer away from an extra virgin olive oil. You don't want to really apply a lot of heat to that one. And you can see now why I put the gloves on, because I don't want to have everyone know that I worked with beets later, but this is the most efficient way to get that oil so that it coats everything. Also to that, I'm going to add half a teaspoon of kosher salt. And this is the other reason why you want to make sure that you give it a good mix. And I've got the oven preheating to 400 degrees, by the way. And then somewhere between a half to a full teaspoon of black pepper. And that's going to depend on how much of a bite you like. So the whole amount here is a teaspoon. I'm going to pull it off a little bit before that, maybe use 3/4 of a teaspoon. And again, the idea is you want to make sure that you spread that around. You don't want all the pepper on one piece, or it really will bite somebody when they take a bite of it. Last couple of things on here, because we usually associate these with something really sweet. We're going to do it with herbs. Now, the herbs that I'm using are a half a teaspoon of thyme and a half a teaspoon of rosemary that I have minced fairly well. The rosemary, be real careful with. It can be quite sharp. And I'm using the fresh versions, so that if you're using a dried version, you're going to use even less because they'll be concentrated, maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon at the most instead of a half. Mix them up really well, get those herbs and the oil and everything coated as well as you can, and then you're going to put them in the oven. Now the pieces, again, they're all very, very similar in size, so they're going to cook about the same speed. They're going to stay in the oven for somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes. And the length of time is going to be dependent. You can figure it out in a little bit how big of pieces you actually ended up getting. I was aiming for a size, but sometimes I moved to a little bit larger. I actually got a ruler out trying to get them as close as I could though. So these are pretty close. So it's 20 to 30 minutes and you're going to be really surprised. You don't need to stir them part way through. You don't need to do anything except check them after 20 minutes, stick a knife in there or a fork and see if they're tender. Isn't it gorgeous? You get all those beautiful colors. You also get all the sweetness that's been concentrated as these vegetables have cooked. A little bit of the color transfers from one place to another, but you just can't get anything much prettier than this. Kids love it. It tastes almost like candy, and I think that if you're an adult like me anyway, you're going to love it too. I hope you'll try this one. It's roasted autumn vegetables. For Oklahoma Gardening, I'm Barbara Brown.